Okay, here's a confession. When I created that video on Tell Me Something About Yourself, I had no idea that it would receive this amount of love. Just 2 days after having posted that video, I'm back primarily to thank you for showing so much love to it. I cannot tell you how much feedback I have received, most of them positive, most of them constructive. What made me happiest was the fact that a large number of you, even people who've passed out of the college, my college, and are right now into various amazing organizations, getting back to me and asking me to post more videos on related content. So here I am back once again, and I have chosen today to discuss about something that almost all of you have been asking me, requesting me to discuss here. A very common question that comes to the minds of people who are preparing for interviews or people who've just appeared for interviews is that how bad is it if you are unable to answer a question or two? Does it really mean the death of your chances? Does it really mean that somebody else is definitely going to get the job and you won't? Should you feel very nervous if you are unable to answer a question? Should your morale go down? Should the rest of the interview, so far it was going amazingly well, but after you are unable to answer a question, should the rest of it suffer? The answer is no. It's absolutely fine if you're unable to answer a question because you don't know the answer. It's absolutely fine if you're unable to answer a question because you're unable to recall it. The people who are conducting these interviews, they would know that it's perfectly natural for a person to not know everything under the sun. It's absolutely normal for a person to be unable to recall an answer. This does not mean that your chances are dead. This does not mean that you should tell yourself, this is over and let the rest of the interview suffer. Because if you do that, then you're definitely not going to get the job. So it's very, very important to tell yourself right at the beginning, even before entering the room, that let's be practical. It's not going to be possible for me to answer all the questions. Even if I'm unable to answer a few, not just one, but a few, I still have a very good chance of making it through. If you go in with this kind of a mental preparation, then there is a very high chance that you will be performing very well till the end, even if you're unable to answer a couple of questions. And believe me, it's absolutely fine if you're unable to answer a few of the questions that are asked to you. Okay, to prove my point, I'm going to give you two examples. One is of one of my students who's also a very, very good friend, and the other one is of myself. Now, let's talk about the student's experience first to prove to you that it's perfectly fine if you're unable to answer a couple of questions in an interview. This guy was from mechanical engineering, and it was the TCS recruitment drive in our college, and we had all been waiting since 8 in the morning. The process consisted of several steps. At around 8 in the evening, we were all tired. The kids wanted to go home and get some rest. Many of them were extremely hungry, and most importantly, we were all running out of patience. So we were sitting in a particular classroom that had been open for us to wait for the kids to be called for their interviews. And one of these guys who was studying mechanical engineering back then was appearing for the TCS interview, and he told me before going in that he was not really feeling comfortable for what was going to come, that is the interview, because obviously, although he had cleared the aptitude test, he always knew that he was a mechanical engineering student, and he did not have any idea about computer languages, and he knew that it was going to be tough to go in and answer questions if those were related to computer languages or anything related to computers for that matter. And exactly that happened. I tried to cheer him up, and then he got called, he got inside, and he came back after about 15 minutes and sat down next to me, didn't speak for a couple of minutes. When I asked him what happened, he said exactly what I told you. They asked me a number of questions on related to computers. They asked me if I knew any computer language. I couldn't answer those questions, or I had to say no to most of those. I don't think I'm going to make it. I said, what about the rest of the interview? The questions which were not related to computers, did you answer them well? He said, I answered them very, very well. But you know what? There were about 6 or 7 questions related to computers and computer languages, and I couldn't answer a single one of them. This whole day has been wasted, and I would like to forget this day as quickly as possible. I said, hey, look, they know that you're a mechanical engineering student. So maybe they have asked you these questions, but because they also know that you are a mechanical engineering student, there's always a chance that they're going to forget about your not being able to answer those questions related to computer languages, programming, etc. And you're still going to make it. And guess what happened? At around 11:30 at night, when we were all called to a bigger classroom and the names were announced, his name was pretty much there in that list. He had made it. He's still working in TCS, and he looked at me with huge eyes, shocked, unable to believe that he had made it. I winked at him and I told him, see, I told you, they knew that, they always knew right from the beginning that you were a mechanical engineering student. So they would not expect from you what they would expect from a CS or IT student. You answered the other questions very, very well. That's when you secured a position in their organization. So this happens a lot of times. There is no reason to panic. They sometimes test if you are able to handle yourself properly when you are unable to answer their questions. So don't fail in that test. Now let's move on to another story which has to do with my experience of an interview. This is the story of a particular interview in which I appeared about a decade ago, and in the first 15 or 20 minutes, all the questions that were asked to me, I answered them like a pro. I was very happy. Every passing minute was proving to me that I was going to get the job. But after about 15 minutes of questioning, they asked me who my favorite author was. Now, that was very, very easy as a question. So I gave out the name, and then they asked me the obvious question. Can you give us the names of 6 or 7 books by that person? I said, of course. And I was this much confident because of the fact that I could not just give them the names of the books, I could give them the most interesting passages of different books along with page numbers. I was that level of confident. So I said, yes, of course, I can give you the names of the 6 or 7 books. And I had those names in my mind because I was genuine about the fact that I actually remembered all the names. But guess what happened? The moment I said, of course, I can give you the names of not just 6, 7, but all the books that that author had written, I forgot all the names. There was a weird kind of silence for about 45 seconds to a minute, within which I really wanted to kill myself. And I looked at those people with blank eyes. They looked back because I was performing so well in the interview. So they were surprised that I wouldn't be able to name just 5, 6 books by my favorite author. They hadn't given me the name of the author. I had claimed that that person was my favorite author. So I should remember the names of the books that he had written, at least the bestsellers. So then I kept staring for some time, and then they said, what happened, Ashish? Is there something wrong? I said, I don't know what happened. I just cannot recall the name of the books. And believe me, I was not nervous. This did not happen because of nervousness, because as I told you, the interview was going very, very well. There was no reason for me to be nervous. The names just slipped out of my mind. And then the interview, they said, it's okay, we understand, these things happen. And they started asking me other questions, which I answered, but at the back of my mind, for the next 5 or 10 minutes that they conducted the interview, I was constantly struggling with myself to recall the names of the books, because it was like a challenge to myself. I was thinking that it doesn't matter how the rest of the interview goes. If I leave this room without being able to name the 6 or 7 books by that author, then it would be so disgusting. The journey back home is going to be a very bad one. So for the next 5 or 6 minutes, I was half listening the questions that they were asking. I was obviously answering those questions, but I was constantly trying to recall the names of the books. At the end of the interview, one of the interviewers smiled at me and said, hey, you are still trying to recall the names, right? I said, yes, ma'am, I'm trying to, because I feel very, very bad about the fact that I'm unable to give you the names of the 6 or 7 books. She said, it's okay, these things happen in an interview, you might be stressed. I said, no, the interview, from my side, the interview went so well. I was not stressed. I was actually very happy that I was doing so well. I don't know what happened. The names of the books just slipped out of my mind. And then the interview ended. I gracefully walked out of the room, and the moment I stepped out of it, the names of all the books by that author came back to me. My instinct was to, because no other person had entered the interview room, I had just walked out, so my instinct was to go back and give them the names to prove to them that I actually remembered those. But I stopped myself because that would have been very, very unprofessional. When they asked me the question, I couldn't answer it, and that was it. I couldn't go out of the room and then go back in and give them the answers, because that would be very, very unprofessional. I was dying inside to tell them that I remember all the names. I have been able to recall all of them, but maintaining my professionalism, I walked out of the institution. But the end result of this story was that I got the job. So I want to tell all of you that it's perfectly fine, reiterating what I had told you right at the beginning of this video, that it's absolutely fine if you're unable to answer a couple of questions. They would understand if the rest of the interview goes very, very well, if you're able to impress them, if your answer to that tell me something about yourself question is amazing, they would understand if you mess up in a couple of questions, and they'll still give you the job. So remain confident from beginning till the end. Know that you are good enough, and answer all the questions. The ones that you know, answer them very well. The ones that you do not know, please be honest. Say you do not know, or say that you are unable to recall, whatever be the situation at that time. But do not give up hope. Do not let the ship sink because of a tiny iceberg, okay? And you will surely get the job. All the best, and I hope this video also gave you value. If you have other questions in mind which you would like me to make videos about, please write those questions in the comment section below, and I'm going to pick those one by one and discuss those in the upcoming videos. And I'm sure that all of you will benefit from those discussions. Thank you so much. Stay safe. Goodbye.